The bride handed me $800 in cash. Her lipstick didn't match her smile, and her next words froze me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up 3 weeks, to when I was just trying to survive another Tuesday in late spring, drowning in overdue bills and the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones when you've been treading water too long. My name is Maya, and I'm a freelance event photographer in Portland. Or at least, that's what I call myself on the good days. On bad days, which were becoming more frequent, I'm an underemployed 31-year-old woman with a maxed-out credit card, 2 months of back rent hanging over my head, and a landlord who'd stopped returning my calls with anything resembling patience. The morning everything changed started like all the others. My alarm blared at 6:30 a.m., dragging me from a dream where my bank account had actual positive numbers. I reached for my phone and immediately wished I hadn't. 3 new emails, all with the subject lines that make your stomach drop. Final notice, rent payment required. Your credit card payment is past due. Important, your student loan is in default. I sat there in my cramped studio apartment, barely 400 square feet of fading paint and second-hand furniture, and felt that familiar weight pressing down on my chest. The kind of pressure that makes it hard to breathe, hard to think about anything except numbers. Numbers that never added up no matter how many times I rearranged them in my head. 3 years ago, I'd quit my soul-crushing corporate marketing job to pursue photography full-time. Everyone said I was brave. My mom said I was reckless. Turns out, we were both right. The first year had been promising: weddings, engagements, family portraits. But the market was saturated. Everyone with an iPhone and an Instagram filter thought they were a photographer now. My bookings had dried up from 12 events a month to maybe 3 if I was lucky. I made coffee in my French press, the one luxury I refused to give up, and scrolled through my business email. Inquiry. Spam. Invoice reminder. Another inquiry, probably spam. Then one caught my eye. Subject: urgent wedding photography needed June 8th. The date was only 3 weeks away. Most brides book 6 months to a year in advance. Last-minute bookings usually meant either a very small budget or a very difficult client, sometimes both. But I was in no position to be picky. I opened it. Hi, my asterisk. I found your portfolio online and I'm absolutely in love with your work. I'm getting married on June 8th at the Evergreen Estate, and my photographer just canceled on me. Family emergency. I know this is incredibly last minute, but I'm desperate. Would you be available? My budget is flexible. Please call me ASAP. Sincerely, asterisk. Victoria Ashford. 500-35-50-5147. The Evergreen Estate. My breath caught. That was one of Portland's most exclusive wedding venues, a sprawling 19th-century mansion with gardens that looked like they'd been transplanted from a European fairy tale. Weddings there started at $50,000, easily. If this Victoria person could afford that venue, she could afford to pay a professional photographer professional rates. I called immediately. She picked up on the second ring. Hello! Her voice was smooth, cultured, with that particular polish that comes from expensive education and country club memberships. Hi, this is Maya Tours. You emailed about wedding photography. Oh, thank God, she exhaled with audible relief. Maya, yes, I'm so glad you called. I've been absolutely frantic since Rachel, that's my original photographer, had to bow out. Her father had a stroke and she flew to Florida. Obviously, I completely understand, but your wedding is in 3 weeks, I finished. Exactly, she paused. Listen, I looked through your entire portfolio. You have this way of capturing real moments, not the stiff, posed stuff everyone does. I saw the photos from the Henderson wedding last fall, the one at the Japanese garden. I remembered that wedding. It had been one of my favorites, an intimate ceremony with maybe 40 guests, more focused on emotion than spectacle. I'd captured the groom's father tearing up during the vows, the bride's grandmother dancing with abandon at the reception. Real moments, like Victoria said. That was a special day, I said carefully. Your style is exactly what I want. Authentic, raw, beautiful. Can you do it? Every instinct told me to say yes immediately, but I'd learned the hard way to discuss terms first. What's your photography budget? $3,000 for the day. 8 hours of coverage, from bride prep to first dances, all digital files with print rights. My heart actually skipped. $3,000. That would cover my rent for 2 months and make a serious dent in my credit card. It was more than I'd made in the last 6 weeks combined. I can do that, I said, trying to keep my voice professional instead of desperately grateful. Wonderful. I could hear the smile in her voice. Can we meet? I'd love to go over the timeline and show you some inspiration photos. Are you free tomorrow afternoon? We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in the Pearl District the next day. After we hung up, I sat staring at my phone, hardly believing my luck. Finally, something was going right. I should have known better. The next afternoon, I walked into Blue Star Coffee House 15 minutes early. I always arrive early to client meetings. It gives me a chance to settle, to observe, to prepare. The place smelled like espresso and cinnamon, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of aggressively trendy Portland establishment that charged $6 for a latte. I ordered an Americano and chose a table near the window where natural light was best. Force of habit. Victoria Ashford arrived exactly on time, and she was impossible to miss. Late 20s, maybe 30, with the kind of carefully maintained appearance that takes both money and discipline. Honey blonde hair in a sleek low ponytail, minimal makeup applied with professional precision, a cream-colored cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She carried herself with that particular confidence of someone who'd never had to worry about basic things like rent or bills. But her eyes told a different story. They were gray-blue, and even through her smile they looked tired, anxious even. Maya, she extended a manicured hand. Victoria, nice to meet you. Her handshake was firm, cool. She ordered some complicated oat milk beverage and settled across from me, pulling out an iPad covered in a leather case. I'm so relieved you could take this on. You have no idea how much stress you've just lifted off me. Happy to help. Weddings are stressful enough without a photography crisis. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. You have no idea. For the next 20 minutes, we went through the practical details. The ceremony was at 4 p.m. She wanted me there at noon for getting ready photos. First look with her fiancé at 2:30 in the estate gardens. Family formals after the ceremony. Reception coverage through dinner and first dances, wrapping up around 8 p.m. Standard stuff, nothing unusual. She showed me inspiration photos on her iPad, mostly editorial-style wedding photography, candid moments, soft, natural light. Good taste, actually. This all looks great, I said. Very doable. Tell me about your fiancé. What's his name? Something flickered across her face, just for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by that practiced smile. Marcus Holloway. We've been together for 3 years. How did you meet? Mutual friends, a dinner party in Seattle. She scrolled past several photos quickly, not meeting my eyes. He's in tech, VP of something or other at a startup that's doing really well. I made notes on my phone. And what about you? What do you do? Event planning, actually. Corporate events, mostly. Which makes it doubly embarrassing that my own wedding has been such a disaster. She laughed again, that same brittle sound. That's when I noticed her hands. They were clenched around her coffee cup, knuckles pale. And there, on her left ring finger, was an engagement ring that could probably fund a down payment on a house. Oval diamond, maybe 3 carats, platinum setting. But she kept twisting it, around and around like a nervous habit. Victoria, I said gently, are you okay? She looked up sharply. What? Yes, of course, just wedding jitters, you know. I didn't push. Brides got stressed. That was normal, but something felt off. I couldn't put my finger on it yet. We wrapped up the meeting with me promising to send over a contract and invoice that evening. She insisted on Venmoing me a $500 deposit immediately, which I wasn't about to argue with. As we stood to leave, she touched my arm. "Maya, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "You seem like someone with good instincts, good judgment." She bit her lower lip. "Have you ever been in a situation where you knew something was wrong but you felt powerless to change it?" The question caught me off guard. Yes, I think most people have." She nodded slowly. "What did you do?" I thought about my ex-boyfriend, Evan. About how I'd known for months he was lying to me but convinced myself I was paranoid. About the credit card I'd stupidly put in my name for our business venture that turned out to be just his debt. About the day I finally found the proof and the horrible relief that came with being right about something terrible. "I gathered evidence," I said quietly, "and then I made the hard choice." Victoria's eyes glistened. "That takes courage." "So does asking for help." She squeezed my arm, then pulled back, composing herself. "Thank you for meeting with me. I'll see you on the 8th. I watched her leave, that strange conversation echoing in my head. She climbed into a black Mercedes and sat there for a long moment before starting the engine. Even from inside the coffee shop, I could see her shoulders shaking. Something was very wrong with Victoria Ashford. But it was none of my business. I was just the photographer. That's what I told myself. The next 2.5 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. I scouted the Evergreen estate during an open house tour, mapping out the best photo locations. The place was stunning, manicured gardens with rose arbors, a stone terrace overlooking a pond, massive oak trees draped with Spanish moss. The interior was all dark wood and crystal chandeliers, elegant without being stuffy. I confirmed all the details with Victoria via email and text. She was responsive, but brief. Every message felt slightly strained, like she was choosing her words carefully. 3 days before the wedding, my phone rang at 10 p.m. Victoria. "Maya, I'm so sorry to call so late." "It's fine. What's up?" "Could we meet? Tomorrow morning? I know it's short notice, but I need to. There's something I need to discuss with you, in person." My stomach tightened. "Is there a problem with the wedding?" "No, I mean, not exactly. Can you meet me at Riverside Park, by the fountain, 8 a.m.? "Victoria, if you need to cancel." "I'm not canceling. Please, I just need to talk to you. It's important." Against my better judgment, I agreed. I didn't sleep well that night. Riverside Park was nearly empty at 8 a.m. on a Thursday. Early morning joggers traced the paved paths. A man threw tennis balls for his golden retriever near the water. The fountain in the central plaza burbled pleasantly, catching the morning light. Victoria was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench, staring at the water. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, the most casual I'd seen her. No makeup, hair in a messy bun. She looked younger this way, and more scared. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down beside her. "What's going on?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a white envelope. She held it in both hands, staring at it like it might explode. "There's $800 in here," she said quietly. I blinked. "Okay." "I need to ask you for something. Something that's going to sound absolutely insane. But I need you to hear me out, please." Every alarm bell in my head started ringing. "Victoria, I need you to sabotage my wedding." The words hung in the air between us. A jogger passed by, ponytail swinging. The golden retriever barked in the distance. Everything felt surreal. "I'm sorry, what?" She turned to me, and her eyes were desperate. "I need you to ruin it, not in an obvious way. Nothing that could be traced back to you or blamed on you. But I need something to go so catastrophically wrong that the wedding can't continue, that it has to be stopped or postponed." I stood up. "I think you need to find another photographer." Wait, please. She stood too, still clutching that envelope. I know how this sounds, but I'm trapped, Maya. I can't marry Marcus. I can't. But I can't call it off either, so I need someone else to stop it. And you're the only person in a position to do it. Why can't you call it off yourself? Her laugh was bitter. Because I signed a prenup. A prenup written by Marcus's father's lawyers that includes a termination penalty. If I break our engagement for any reason other than his infidelity or abuse, I owe his family $200,000. I sat back down slowly. $200,000. Compensation for damages to reputation and professional standing and wedding expenses already incurred. It's completely legal. I had my own lawyer look at it. I was young and stupid and in love, or what I thought was love, and I signed it without thinking. Marcus said it was just a formality, that his dad insisted on it for everyone in the family, that it would never matter because we'd be together forever. Her voice broke. I believed him. But if you go through with the wedding and then divorce, then I'm locked in for 2 years minimum before I can file, or I still owe the money. And Marcus knows I don't have $200,000. I have student loans. I have a decent job, but nothing that could cover that. My parents are retired on a fixed income. I have no one who can help me. I felt sick. Why do you want out? She looked away. Does it matter? Yes, it matters a lot if you're asking me to commit, whatever this is. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone, navigated to her photos, and handed it to me. Scroll. The first photo was a screenshot of a text message. From Marcus to someone named Jessica. Can't wait to see you Saturday. V thinks I'm in Seattle for meetings. I'll tell her my flight got delayed. The next screenshot. I know we said we'd stop after the wedding, but I don't think I can. You're the only one who really gets me. I scrolled further. More messages. Photos of Marcus with a brunette woman, kissing, clearly on vacation somewhere tropical. Recent photos. The metadata said they were from 3 weeks ago. He's been cheating on me for 8 months, Victoria said flatly. With a woman who works at his company. I found out 2 months ago, confronted him. He denied everything, said I was paranoid, that those messages were taken out of context. He convinced me I was crazy, that I was sabotaging our relationship because I was afraid of commitment. Jesus, Victoria. Then last week, I hired a private investigator. He confirmed everything. Marcus is still seeing Jessica. He has no intention of stopping, the investigator said. She took a shaky breath. He said Marcus was actually planning to keep her as a permanent mistress, that he's done this in previous relationships, that his father has paid women off before to keep things quiet. Then you have grounds, the prenup. Requires proof admissible in court. Text messages aren't enough. My lawyer said I'd need witnesses, documentation, ironclad evidence. And Marcus is smart. He covers his tracks. Getting that evidence could take months. The investigator quoted me $15,000 to build a solid case. I don't have that money, and the wedding is in 3 days. I handed her phone back. My hands were shaking. So your plan is to sabotage your own wedding and then, what? Call it off afterward. Blame it on bad luck. Yes, if the wedding is ruined, I can postpone indefinitely while we reschedule. Then I can quietly break it off later and claim we grew apart. Marcus won't want the embarrassment of fighting it. He'll let me go. Or he'll sue you anyway. Maybe, but at least I won't be married to him. I stood up again, needing to move to think. This was insane. Absolutely insane. Victoria, I can't. The cake, she interrupted. All you have to do is ruin the cake. You'll be there early. You'll have access. The cake is being delivered at 1 p.m. to the estate's kitchen. It's a 5-tier custom creation from Portland's best bakery. It costs $3,000 alone. If something happens to that cake, if it falls or melts or gets contaminated somehow, the bakery can't replace it in time. The wedding coordinator will have a meltdown. Marcus's mother will have a meltdown. Everything will fall apart. They'll just serve other desserts. No, Marcus's mother specifically told the caterer no other desserts because the cake was supposed to be the centerpiece. It's this whole thing. Trust me, if there's no cake, Diane Holloway will call off the entire reception. I've planned enough events to know how these people operate. They can't handle anything less than perfection. I stared at her. She'd thought this through. And you want me to do it because? Because you have legitimate access. You're supposed to be everywhere, taking photos. No one will question you being in the kitchen area. And if somehow something gets traced back to anyone, I'll swear you had nothing to do with it. I'll say it was an accident. Kitchen staff, delivery problem, something. You'll be completely protected. She held out the envelope again. $800. Cash. Plus you keep the $500 deposit, and I'll still pay you the full $3,000 for the day even though the wedding won't happen. That's $3,800 total for basically just showing up. I stared at that envelope. $3,800. That would cover rent for 3 months, pay off half my credit card, buy me breathing room to build my business back up, maybe even let me sleep at night without panic attacks about money. All I had to do was push over a cake. Would you take the money if no one ever found out? The question rose in my mind unbidden. Would I? If I could be guaranteed no consequences, no karma, no guilt, would I take easy money to ruin a wedding? I need to think about it, I heard myself say. Victoria nodded, setting the envelope on the bench between us. That's fair, but Maya, I need an answer by tomorrow morning. The wedding is Saturday. If you say no, I need to figure something else out. There isn't something else, is there? She smiled sadly. No, there really isn't. She walked away, leaving me sitting on that bench with $800 in cash and a moral crisis. I didn't open the envelope right away. I couldn't. I just carried it home like it was radioactive, set it on my kitchen counter, and stared at it. $800. Such a specific amount, not 1,000, nice and round. Victoria had thought about what she could afford, or maybe what she thought would be enough but not too much, enough to tempt me without insulting me. It was working. I made coffee and sat at my tiny kitchen table, trying to think logically, trying to be the person my mom raised me to be. My mom, God, what would she say if she knew? I pulled out my phone and scrolled to her contact. My thumb hovered over the call button, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't tell her about this. She'd tell me the right thing to do, the same thing my conscience was screaming, and then I'd have to face her disappointment when I admitted I was even considering the wrong thing. Instead, I called my best friend Amber. Hey lady, she answered cheerfully. What's up? I need moral advice. Uh-oh, scale of 1 to 10, how much trouble are you in? 7, maybe 8. Okay, hit me. I told her everything. The wedding, Victoria, Marcus, the prenup, the envelope of cash sitting on my counter. The only thing I didn't mention was that I was actually considering it. Amber was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Maya, tell me you're calling because you already said no, and you just need validation. I'm calling because I don't know what to do. Babe, you know what to do. You absolutely know what to do. Amber, I'm drowning here. My rent is 2 months behind. I have debt collectors calling me. I've been eating ramen for 3 weeks because I can't afford groceries. This money is not worth your integrity. Easy for you to say, I snapped. You have a stable job, a salary, benefits. You don't know what it's like to. To what? To be desperate? Maya, I was homeless for 6 months after college. I slept in my car. I showered at the gym. I know desperation. And I'm telling you, the moment you compromise your values for money, you lose something you can't buy back. Her words hit like cold water. But Victoria is trapped, I said weakly. She needs help. Then help her, but not like this. Help her find a women's shelter. Help her call a lawyer. Help her talk to her family. There are other options. She said there aren't. Because she's desperate too. Desperate people don't think clearly. You know this. I did know this. I'd learned it the hard way with Evan. When I was desperate to believe he loved me, I'd ignored every red flag. I'd made excuses. I'd chosen the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. Until I couldn't anymore. Have you ever done the right thing and still lost everything? I asked quietly. Amber sighed. When I left my ex, I lost our apartment, our friend group, and my sense of security. I spent months thinking I'd made the worst mistake of my life. But Maya, leaving him saved my life. I didn't lose everything. I lost what was hurting me. There's a difference. We talked for another 20 minutes. She didn't judge me for considering it, which I was grateful for. She just kept gently steering me back to what we both knew was right. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment as the afternoon light faded. I watched the shadows move across my walls, across the envelope on the counter. I thought about my dad. He died when I was 15, heart attack at 51. But I remembered something he told me once, when I was 13 and had shoplifted a lipstick from the drugstore because all my friends were doing it. We were in the car, driving home from the store where he'd made me return it and apologize. I was humiliated, angry, defensive. Maya, he'd said, your character is what you do when nobody's watching, when nobody would know. The world is going to give you 1,000 chances to compromise yourself, and every time you'll have a good reason. You'll need the money, or you'll be protecting someone, or everyone else is doing it. But at the end of your life, you have to live with the person you became. Make sure she's someone you're proud to be. I'd thought it was such a dad speech at the time. Corny, obvious. But sitting there in my apartment, nearly broke, staring at easy money, I finally understood what he meant. The person I was becoming, the one who'd take this money, I didn't want to be her. I grabbed my phone and texted Victoria. I can't do this. I'm sorry. I understand your situation, but I can't compromise my integrity. I'll still photograph your wedding if you want, but I can't sabotage it. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then I picked up the envelope, opened it, and counted out $800 bills. Crisp, new, smelling like possibility. I took a photo of them on my counter, then put them back in the envelope and sealed it. My phone buzzed. Victoria, can we talk, please, in person? Me, I don't think there's anything to talk about. Victoria, there's more to this than I told you. Please, one more conversation. Tomorrow morning, same place. I hesitated, but curiosity won out. Me, fine, 8 a.m. I spent that entire evening and night feeling alternately proud of myself and terrified I'd just made a huge mistake. The bills notices weren't going anywhere. My landlord wasn't going to develop sudden patience. I'd chosen integrity over rent money. I really hoped I wouldn't regret it. Victoria looked different when I met her the next morning. She wore a navy blazer and slacks, professional, put together. But her face was makeup-free again, and there were dark circles under her eyes that suggested she'd slept as poorly as I had. Thank you for coming, she said as I approached the fountain. I meant what I said. I can't help you the way you're asking. I know, and I respect that. She took a deep breath. But I need to tell you the whole truth, because what's happening tomorrow isn't just about me getting out of a bad relationship. It's bigger than that. We sat on the same bench as yesterday. This time, she didn't pull out money. She pulled out a flash drive. What's that? Evidence of what Marcus and his father have been doing, not just to me, to other women. My stomach dropped. I told you Marcus has cheated before. What I didn't tell you is that his last fiancée, a woman named Sarah Torres, disappeared from public life about 2 years ago. She broke off their engagement suddenly. No one knew why. I found her on Facebook 6 months ago and messaged her. She didn't respond at first. But then, 3 weeks ago, after I hired the investigator, she called me. Victoria's hands were shaking as she held the flash drive. Sarah told me that Marcus's father, Richard Holloway, runs a private equity firm. Very wealthy, very connected. When Sarah found out Marcus was cheating and tried to break their engagement, Richard threatened her. Told her she'd signed a prenup with a penalty clause, just like mine, and that if she spoke publicly about Marcus or said anything negative about the family, he'd sue her into bankruptcy. But he'd also make sure she never worked in her field again. He has connections everywhere. Finance, tech, media. He could destroy her career. Jesus Christ. Sarah was terrified. She paid the penalty $150,000, wiped out her savings, and moved to Vancouver to start over. She said she wasn't the first woman Richard had done this to. There was another woman before her and probably others. The Holloway men have a pattern. They pursue successful, independent women. They get engaged. The son cheats or becomes controlling, and when the women try to leave, the father uses the prenup and his power to either trap them or financially destroy them. Why are you telling me this? Because Sarah gave me documentation, emails, financial records, proof of the payments. She's willing to testify if there's ever a legal case, but she's scared. Richard Holloway is the kind of man who ruins people for sport. He's done it before. Victoria held out the flash drive. This is everything. Copies of Sarah's prenup, proof of her penalty payment, testimony from her, and from another woman named Lauren Matthews who went through the same thing. Plus all my documentation, my prenup, the investigator's report on Marcus, everything. I was planning to send this to a journalist next week, someone who covers corporate corruption, but I need more time. I need this wedding not to happen so I have breathing room to do this right. Because if I just back out, Richard will come after me. I'll lose everything and the story will never get told. I stared at the flash drive like it was a snake. If this is true, you need to go to a lawyer. Report this. There has to be a legal way. Maya, these people have teams of lawyers. They have money and power and connections. The legal way takes years and costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. By the time any charges were filed, if they ever were, my life would be destroyed. Sarah's already been through that. She's rebuilding. I don't want to drag her through more trauma unless I know we have a shot at real justice. So your plan is to expose them publicly, through the media. Yes, sunlight is the best disinfectant, right? If their pattern is exposed publicly with evidence, it's harder for them to hide. Other women might come forward. Pressure could force real investigations. But I need time to do it right. And I need to not be legally bound to Marcus when the story breaks. She pressed the flash drive into my hand. I'm not asking you to sabotage the wedding anymore. I'm asking you to look at this evidence. Verify it if you want. And then decide if helping me, helping all of us, is worth the risk. I closed my fingers around the small device. It felt heavy. What would you need me to do? Tomorrow, during the wedding, I'm going to stop it myself. I'm going to object during my own ceremony. I have proof of Marcus's infidelity with me, actual photos, time-stamped, verified. When the officiant asks if anyone objects, I'm going to stand up and say I do. I'm going to present the evidence right there in front of everyone. In front of his parents, my parents, all our guests. I'm going to force them to acknowledge it. And then I'm walking away. That's incredibly brave. That's incredibly terrifying, she corrected. And here's where I need your help. Richard Holloway will try to stop me. He'll try to confiscate my evidence, claim I'm having a breakdown, remove me from the venue. He's done it before, Sarah said when she confronted Marcus at a family dinner. Richard physically escorted her out and then had security hold her in a room until she calmed down. I need backup. I need someone there who has her own evidence, who can document what happens, who can make sure the truth gets out even if they shut me down. You want me to photograph it? I want you to witness it, to have that flash drive as insurance. If something happens to me, if they succeed in silencing me, you take that to the journalist. Her name and contact are on the drive. You make sure this story still gets told. This was so far beyond what I'd signed up for. Victoria, I'm a photographer, not an investigative journalist, not a lawyer. I can't. You can. You already made the hard choice. You chose integrity over money. You're exactly who I need. I looked at her, really looked at her, at the exhaustion and determination in her eyes, at the set of her jaw. This wasn't a woman running away. This was a woman preparing for battle. "If you do this," I said slowly, "you're going to lose people. Friends who won't believe you, family who will say you embarrassed them. Your job, maybe, if Richard has any influence there." "I know. You might lose everything and still not get justice. These kinds of stories don't always end the way they should." "I know that too." She met my eyes. "But if I don't try, I'll definitely lose the only thing that really matters, my self-respect. Better to fight and lose than to never fight at all." Her words echoed my dad's. I thought about Sarah, paying $150,000 and fleeing to another country. About Lauren Matthews, whoever she was, suffering something similar. About how many other women the Holloway men had done this to. About the ones who might come after Victoria if this pattern wasn't stopped. I thought about integrity, about doing the right thing even when it costs you everything. "Okay," I said. "I'll be there. I'll document everything. And if you need me to be a witness or get this to your journalist, I will." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." "But Victoria, you need a better plan than just objecting at the ceremony. Richard Holloway sounds dangerous. You need safety protocols, someone who knows what you're doing where you are, an exit strategy." "I have one. My aunt, my mom's sister, knows everything. She'll be at the wedding. She's agreed to help me leave immediately after. I have a bag packed in her car. I'm going straight from the Evergreen estate to her house, and then I'm staying with a friend in Seattle until this blows over. My aunt is also my emergency contact. If anything happens, she has copies of everything." "Good." I held up the flash drive. "I'll look at this tonight, and I'll be there tomorrow, ready for whatever happens." We stood. This time, Victoria hugged me. She smelled like expensive perfume and fear. "I hope you know how brave you are," I told her. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I'm not brave, I'm just out of options. There's a difference." "No," I said firmly, "there isn't." That night, I plugged the flash drive into my laptop and started reading. It took me 3 hours to go through everything. By the end, I felt sick. Sarah Torr's prenup was almost identical to Victoria's. The same penalty clause, the same vague language about damages to reputation. The same law firm's signature at the bottom, Whitmore and Associates, one of Portland's most expensive firms. Then there were the bank statements. A wire transfer from Sarah Torr's to Richard Holloway's business account, $150,000. The memo line read, "Settlement personal matter." Her written testimony was devastating. She described how Marcus had been charming, attentive, perfect for the first year. Then engagement, the prenup she'd signed without fully reading. Then his behavior changed. He became controlling, checked her phone, isolated her from friends. And yes, he cheated with multiple women. When she found out and tried to leave, Richard Holloway personally visited her at her office. "He told me I had 2 choices," Sarah wrote. "Pay the penalty and disappear quietly, or refuse and watch him destroy my career." He had screenshots of old college photos from parties. Photos where I was drunk, making out with people looking messy. He said he'd send them to my employer, to industry contacts, to everyone. He'd say I was unstable, vindictive, trying to extort his son. He'd make sure I never worked in finance again. I believed him. I paid. Lauren Matthews' story was similar. Different details. She'd been with Marcus's older brother, James, but the same pattern, same prenup, same controlling behavior, same threats from Richard when she tried to leave. She'd paid $175,000. The file also contained something else, a spreadsheet. It listed 6 names. Sarah and Lauren were on it. So was Victoria. The other 3 had dates next to them ranging back 12 years and amounts: $200,000, $125,000, $180,000. Richard Holloway had been running this scheme for over a decade. A pattern of targeting women, trapping them legally, then either controlling them or extracting money when they tried to escape. It was systematic. It was calculated. It was evil. I sat back from my laptop, my hands shaking. This wasn't just about Victoria getting out of a bad relationship. This was about stopping a predator, multiple predators. I copied the entire flash drive to my own computer, then to cloud storage. If Victoria was going to take this risk tomorrow, I was going to make damn sure the evidence survived. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I Googled Richard Holloway. His LinkedIn was impressive. Founder and CEO of Holloway Capital Partners, board member of 3 major corporations, donor to political campaigns and charities. His photo showed a man in his 60s, silver-haired, distinguished-looking. The kind of man who appeared in Portland Business Journal features about leaders who give back. I found an interview he'd done 2 years ago. The interviewer asked about his family values. "Family is everything to me," Richard had said. "I've worked hard to build not just financial success, but a legacy. I want my sons to understand that with great privilege comes great responsibility. We take care of our own, and we protect the Holloway name." Protect the Holloway name. That's what this was really about. Not love, not family values, control, image, power. I thought about calling the police. But with what? Prenups weren't illegal. Penalty clauses weren't illegal, even if they were predatory. The threats Sarah described were years old, and proving coercion would be nearly impossible without recordings or witnesses. No, Victoria was right. The only way to stop this was exposure, public pressure, sunlight as disinfectant. I just hoped she knew what she was walking into. I barely slept that night. I kept thinking about tomorrow, about what might happen, about Richard Holloway and his lawyers and his power, about Victoria standing up in front of everyone, objecting to her own wedding, about whether I was really ready to be part of this. Around 3 a.m., I finally admitted something to myself. I wasn't doing this just for Victoria anymore. I was doing it because my dad was right. Character is what you do when nobody's watching, when you could get away with doing nothing. This was my chance to be someone I was proud of, even if it cost me everything. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather, 72 degrees, cloudless blue sky, light breeze. The kind of day every bride dreams of. I arrived at the Evergreen Estate at 11:45 a.m., 15 minutes early as always. The place was already bustling with activity. Florists arranging massive displays of white roses and peonies. Caterers unloading equipment. The wedding coordinator, a sharp woman named Patricia in her 50s, directing traffic with a clipboard and a Bluetooth earpiece. "You must be the photographer," she said, barely glancing at me. "Brides getting ready in the Rose Suite, 2nd floor, East Wing. Try not to get in anyone's way." "Yes, ma'am." I made my way upstairs, my camera bags feeling heavier than usual. Or maybe that was just the weight of what I was carrying, the knowledge of what was coming, the flash drive in my pocket as insurance. The Rose Suite was exactly what you'd expect, luxurious and feminine, all blush tones and gilt mirrors. Victoria sat in front of a large vanity while a makeup artist worked on her eyes. She wore a silk robe, her hair already styled in an elegant updo with delicate pearl pins. She saw me in the mirror and smiled. It looked genuine this time, not the strained expression from our coffee shop meeting. "Maya, thank you for being here." "Of course." I started unpacking my cameras, attaching lenses, checking settings, normal photographer behavior. "How are you feeling?" "Surprisingly calm," she said. The makeup artist stepped back to let Victoria look at herself. "I think once you make a decision, really commit to it, the anxiety goes away, you know." I did know. For the next hour, I photographed Victoria getting ready, her mother helping her into her dress, a stunning off-shoulder gown with delicate lace and a cathedral train, her bridesmaids fussing over her veil, her grandmother presenting her with pearl earrings, something borrowed. Everything looked perfect, beautiful, like a fairy tale. except I knew how it was going to end. At one point, Victoria's mother stepped out to take a phone call, and Victoria came over to me by the window. "You have it?" she asked quietly. I patted my camera bag. The flash drive was in an interior pocket, safe and sound. "Thank you," she glanced toward the door. "My Aunt Carol is here. The woman in the navy dress downstairs, you'll see her. She knows to look for you if anything goes wrong. If I give her a signal or if things go sideways, she'll find you." "What's the signal?" "I'll ask her if she has my grandmother's handkerchief. That's code for execute the exit plan." I nodded, memorizing the woman's description. Navy dress, Aunt Carol. Victoria squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens today, thank you for seeing me, for believing me. You're doing the right thing." "I hope so." At 2:30 p.m., I photographed the first look. Marcus Holloway was exactly what I expected: tall, conventionally handsome, expensive suit, practiced smile. He saw Victoria and said all the right things about how beautiful she looked. But I watched his eyes. They were cold, calculating. He looked at her the way someone looks at a possession, not a person. Victoria played her part perfectly, smiling, blushing, letting him kiss her cheek. I captured it all, the perfect images of a couple in love. Only I knew the truth. At 3:45 p.m., guests began taking their seats in the garden. The ceremony would be outside, under a massive rose arbor overlooking the pond. I positioned myself strategically, close enough to capture everything, but with a clear view of exits. I spotted Aunt Carol in her navy dress, sitting near the back. She gave me a barely perceptible nod. Richard Holloway sat in the front row, next to a woman who must be Marcus's mother, blonde, severe-looking, dripping with diamonds. Richard looked exactly like his photos, distinguished, powerful, completely at ease. He had no idea what was coming. The ceremony began at 4 p.m. exactly. Processional music played. Bridesmaids walked down the aisle, then the groomsmen. Then, finally, Victoria appeared with her father. She looked breathtaking. She also looked terrified. I photographed her walk down the aisle, capturing the standard shots. Her father's proud face, Marcus's smile, the guests' reactions, everything normal. They reached the altar. Her father kissed her cheek and gave her hand to Marcus. They turned to face the officiant, a kindly-looking man in his 60s. "Dearly beloved," he began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Victoria Ann Ashford and Marcus James Holloway in holy matrimony." My heart was pounding. I glanced at Aunt Carol. She was gripping her purse tightly. The officiant went through the standard ceremony text. Welcome, reading about love from Corinthians, a short reflection on marriage. Then came the vows. Marcus went first. He'd written his own, apparently. Words about partnership, about building a future together, about loving Victoria for the rest of his days. He delivered them smoothly, confidently. Several guests wiped tears. I wanted to throw up. Then Victoria's turn. She pulled out a folded piece of paper from somewhere in her dress. She unfolded it with shaking hands. "Marcus," she began, her voice steady. "3 years ago when we met, I thought I'd found my person. Someone who would be honest with me, loyal to me, who would build a life with me based on trust and respect." Marcus smiled, not seeing what was coming. "But over these 3 years, I've learned that love without truth isn't really love at all. And I've learned that I deserve better than what you've given me." His smile faltered. Confused murmurs rippled through the guests. "I've learned that you've been unfaithful to me for 8 months with a woman named Jessica Parsons. That you've lied to me repeatedly. That your father," she turned to look directly at Richard Holloway, "uses prenuptial agreements as weapons to trap women in his family or extract money from them when they try to leave." Gasps from the audience. Richard Holloway stood up. "Victoria, that's enough," he said sharply. "You're clearly having some kind of episode." "I'm not having an episode," Victoria said, louder now. "I'm telling the truth. Sarah Torres, Lauren Matthews, 3 other women before them. You've run this scheme for 12 years, trapping women, controlling them, destroying them financially when they try to escape. Well, I'm escaping, and I'm making sure everyone knows what you've done." She pulled something from her bouquet, a phone. She held it up so the guests could see the screen. Photos, text messages, evidence. These are screenshots of Marcus's messages to Jessica. These are photos of them together from 3 weeks ago, while he was supposedly in Seattle on business. This is proof of his infidelity, which violates the prenuptial agreement your lawyers made me sign, which means I owe you nothing. Richard Holloway was moving now, striding toward the altar. "Security, we need to remove her." "And this," Victoria continued, speaking faster, "is documentation of your pattern of abuse, evidence from 2 other women. Bank records showing payments, testimony, all of it is already with a journalist and with my lawyer, and in multiple cloud storage accounts. You can try to silence me, but you can't stop the truth." She turned to the officiant. "I object to this marriage, on the grounds that it's based on lies, manipulation, and a legal trap. I'm leaving now. And Marcus, you and your father should expect calls from both the media and the Oregon State Bar Association about your unethical use of prenuptial agreements." The garden erupted into chaos. Guests were on their feet, shouting. Victoria's mother was crying. Marcus stood frozen, his face red. Richard Holloway reached the altar and grabbed Victoria's arm. "Let go of her," Aunt Carol's voice rang out. She'd moved to the front with surprising speed. "Take your hands off my niece, or I'm calling the police right now." I was already photographing everything, every moment. Richard's hand on Victoria's arm, the rage on his face. Victoria pulling free. Marcus finally moving, trying to grab the phone. "Maya," Victoria called, "document this." I kept shooting. Click, click, click. Marcus lunging for the phone, Victoria dodging. Richard Holloway trying to block the aisle. Then I did something I hadn't planned. I switched my camera to video and live-streamed directly to Instagram. "This is Maya Torres, wedding photographer," I said into the camera. "I'm documenting what's happening at the Holloway wedding right now. The bride has just exposed evidence of infidelity and financial abuse by the Holloway family. Richard Holloway is attempting to physically restrain her. Everyone watching, record this. Share this. Be witnesses." My Instagram had maybe 3,000 followers. Most of them were photographers, other vendors, past clients. But in that moment, they were my backup plan. Richard Holloway saw what I was doing. He turned toward me. "You, stop recording. This is a private event." "This is documentation of potential assault," I said, keeping my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "And it's now live on social media. Hundreds of people are watching, so I'd suggest you step back and let Victoria leave peacefully." He froze, calculating. Around us, I could see other guests pulling out their phones, starting to record. The power had shifted. Victoria used the moment. She gathered her massive dress train, kicked off her heels, and ran. Down the aisle, through the garden, Aunt Carol right behind her. I kept filming until they disappeared around the corner of the mansion, heading toward the parking lot. Then I stopped the live stream, grabbed my equipment, and followed. Behind me, the Evergreen Estate garden was in complete chaos. Guests shouting. The wedding coordinator looking shell-shocked. Marcus standing at the altar looking lost. And Richard Holloway, staring after Victoria with an expression of pure hatred. I found Victoria and Aunt Carol at a car near the service entrance. Victoria was already out of her dress, wearing jeans and a t-shirt she'd stashed. Aunt Carol was loading bags into the trunk. "You good?" I called. Victoria looked up and she was crying, but she was also smiling. "I'm good. Maya, thank you for everything, for believing me, for documenting it, for being brave when I needed backup. You did the hard part. I just held a camera. You did more than that. You chose integrity when it would have been easier to walk away." She pulled me into a quick hug. The journalist's name is Alina Rodriguez. She works for the Portland Tribune. She'll be reaching out to you for your photos and videos. And if Richard tries anything, lawsuits, intimidation, anything, you call me immediately." "I will." She climbed into the car. Aunt Carol started the engine. "One more thing," Victoria called through the window. "Check your Venmo. I sent you the full $3,000. You earned every penny." Before I could protest, they were gone. I stood there in the service drive of the Evergreen estate, surrounded by my camera bags, my heart still pounding from adrenaline, and checked my phone. The live stream had been viewed 47,000 times in 20 minutes. It was still climbing. My phone started buzzing with notifications. Comments, DMs, share notifications. And then a call from an unknown number. "Maya Torres, this is Alina Rodriguez from the Portland Tribune. I understand you were present at the Holloway wedding today. I'd very much like to speak with you about what you witnessed." The next week was a blur. Alina Rodriguez interviewed me for 3 hours. I gave her everything: copies of the photos and videos, the documentation Victoria had provided, my own testimony about what I'd witnessed. She was thorough, professional, and completely focused on getting the story right. The article ran 4 days later. Front page of the Portland Tribune. Prominent businessman accused of financial abuse pattern. Multiple women come forward with evidence of predatory prenuptial agreements. It detailed everything. Richard Holloway's pattern of behavior. The prenup scheme. Sarah Torres and Lauren Matthews both went on record with their stories. Victoria's dramatic objection at her own wedding. My photographs accompanied the article, showing Richard Holloway grabbing Victoria's arm, Marcus's guilty expression, the chaos of the moment. Within 24 hours, it had been picked up by national news outlets. Within 48 hours, the Oregon State Bar had announced an investigation into Whitmore and Associates. Within a week, 2 more women had come forward with similar stories about the Holloway family. Richard Holloway's board positions started disappearing. His charity work was put on hold. Marcus Holloway took a sudden, indefinite leave of absence from his tech company. The Holloway name, which Richard had worked so hard to protect, was destroyed. But not by sabotage, by truth. As for me, my life changed too. The exposure from the live stream and the Tribune article brought an avalanche of attention. Wedding photographers started reaching out, asking how I'd had the courage to document everything. Several vendors in Portland's wedding industry privately thanked me, saying they'd long suspected something was wrong with the Holloway family, but hadn't known what. I got emails from 3 different documentary filmmakers wanting to interview me. 2 podcasts requested appearances. An agent reached out about a book deal. And perhaps most importantly, I got booked for 14 weddings in the next 6 months. Apparently, the photographer who live-streamed the truth was in demand. Clients wanted someone with integrity, someone who wouldn't just take pretty pictures but would stand up for what's right. My financial crisis didn't disappear overnight, but it eased. The $3,000 from Victoria covered my immediate rent. The new bookings gave me breathing room. I could finally sleep without panic about money. But more than that, I could sleep knowing I'd done the right thing. 3 weeks after the wedding that wasn't, Victoria called me. "Hey," she said, "are you free for coffee?" We met at Blue Star Coffee House, the same place where this whole thing had started. She looked different, lighter somehow. She wore minimal makeup, casual clothes, and her hair was in a simple ponytail, but her eyes were clear, peaceful. "How are you?" I asked. "Surviving. It's been intense. The media attention, the interviews, the legal proceedings. Richard Holloway tried to sue me for defamation, but his lawyers dropped it after the Oregon State Bar investigation started. Turns out they don't want to bring more attention to the prenup situation." And Marcus moved to California. Jessica broke up with him, apparently. Didn't want to be associated with the scandal. He's blocked me on everything, which is the best gift he could have given me. We both laughed at that. I wanted to thank you again, Victoria said. I know what you risked, and I know it wasn't easy. It was the easiest hard decision I've ever made, I said. If that makes sense. It does. We talked for an hour, two women who'd been through something extraordinary together. She told me about therapy, about rebuilding her career in a new city, about the supportive messages she'd received from strangers. I told her about the new bookings, about feeling like I'd found my purpose again. As we were leaving, she stopped me. Maya, can I tell you something? That morning, when I offered you the $800 to sabotage the wedding, I knew you wouldn't take it. I blinked. What? I researched you before I hired you. I looked through your social media, read reviews from past clients, found an interview you did for a photography blog where you talked about integrity in your work. I knew you'd say no to sabotaging the wedding. But I needed to see if you'd say yes to something harder, standing with me when I exposed the truth. I needed someone with courage, someone who'd choose right over easy, and I knew that was you. I didn't know what to say. That $800 wasn't a bribe, she continued. It was a test, and you passed. You chose integrity when you could have chosen money. That's why I trusted you with everything else. She hugged me goodbye and walked away, leaving me standing on the Portland sidewalk, marveling at the strange way life works sometimes. 6 months later, I photographed a small ceremony in a backyard garden. 50 guests, homemade decorations, a cake from Costco. The couple had been together for 7 years, saved for 3 years to afford even this modest celebration, and they cried through their entire ceremony because they were so happy to finally be married. I captured every moment, the tears, the laughter, the pure joy, and as I worked, I thought about Victoria's wedding, about how different these two events were. One was about money and image and control. The other was about love and commitment and truth. I knew which one mattered more. That evening, as I packed up my equipment, the groom came over to me. "Thank you," he said. "I know we couldn't pay you much, but you made us feel like we mattered. Like our wedding was important even though it wasn't fancy." "Every wedding is important when it's built on truth," I told him. Because here's what I learned from everything that happened with Victoria and the Holloways. Integrity isn't something you have. It's something you choose, every day, in small moments and big ones, when it's convenient and when it costs you. The easy path is always visible. Take the money, look away, mind your own business, don't get involved. But the right path, that one's usually harder to see. It requires courage. It requires sacrifice. It requires being willing to lose something in order to be someone. That morning, when Victoria handed me $800 in cash, she gave me a choice. Not between taking money or rejecting it, between being someone who compromises or someone who stands firm. I chose to stand. And yes, it cost me. There were hard weeks, scary moments, times when I wondered if I'd made a huge mistake. But I sleep better now than I have in years. Because I know who I am. I'm the woman who chose truth over money, who stood up when she could have walked away, who used her camera not just to capture beautiful moments, but to document injustice and protect the vulnerable. I'm someone my dad would be proud of. And that's worth more than any amount of money someone could offer. The Portland Tribune article about the Holloway family led to a deeper investigation. The Oregon State Bar suspended the law licenses of 2 attorneys at Whitmore and Associates pending a full ethics review. Richard Holloway stepped down from all his board positions and sold his interest in Holloway Capital Partners. Marcus Holloway's tech company asked him to resign. More importantly, 3 other women came forward with similar stories. A class action lawsuit was filed. The prenuptial agreements were challenged in court, and while justice moves slowly, it was moving. Sarah Torres called me once, a few months after everything happened. She'd seen the Tribune article and tracked down my number through Victoria. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "For 5 years, I thought I was crazy. That I'd imagined how bad it was. Seeing other women tell the same story, seeing proof that it wasn't just me, it gave me back something I thought I'd lost. "What's that?" I asked. My certainty that it happened, that it was real, that I wasn't the problem. We talked for a long time. She was doing better, still healing, but better. She'd started dating someone new, someone kind. She'd gotten promoted at her job. She was rebuilding. "The best revenge," she told me, "isn't making them suffer. It's becoming so whole that they can't touch you anymore." I think about that often. As for me, my business grew. Not because I became famous, that attention faded after a few months, but because I became known for something more valuable than fame: integrity. Couples started booking me specifically because they'd heard I was the photographer who did the right thing. They wanted someone at their wedding who understood that photos weren't just about pretty moments. They were about truth, about capturing real love, real joy, real commitment. I raised my rates, not to what Victoria had paid, that was still beyond most of my clients' budgets, but to something sustainable. Something that let me pay my bills without panic, save a little, breathe a little. I paid off my credit card. I caught up on rent. I even started putting money aside for the future. But more than the financial stability, I gained something else: peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing that when you were tested, you chose right. When you were offered an easy out, you took the hard road. When you could have looked away, you stood and watched and documented. I learned that integrity isn't just about big moments. It's about all the small choices that lead up to them. It's about building a foundation so that when you're offered $800 to compromise yourself, the answer is obvious. Not because you're special or better than anyone else, but because you've practiced being someone who values the right things. Last month, I got an email from a young photographer. She'd heard about what happened and had a question. "How did you know you were doing the right thing?" she wrote. "How did you know you wouldn't regret it?" I thought about that for a long time before I responded. Here's what I told her. I didn't know. That's the truth. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I didn't know if I'd regret it. I didn't know if Victoria was telling me the whole truth. I didn't know if exposing the Holloways would actually lead to justice or just to more pain. All I knew was that when I imagined myself taking that $800 and sabotaging the wedding, I felt sick. And when I imagined myself refusing, standing with Victoria, documenting the truth, I felt scared, but I also felt right. Sometimes that's all you have. The sense that one path leads toward the person you want to be, and the other path leads away from her. You can't always know the outcome, but you can always know your intentions. I intended to be someone with integrity, someone who stood up for others, someone who used her skills for good. And that intention carried me through every hard moment that followed. Victoria and I still talk occasionally. She's living in Seattle now, working for a nonprofit that helps women escape abusive relationships. She says what happened to her gave her clarity about what she wanted to do with her life. Turns out getting publicly humiliated and almost legally trapped has benefits, she joked during our last call. Really narrows down your career options. She's also writing a book, a memoir about her experience, about the other women, about how systems of power can trap vulnerable people. She asked if I'd write a chapter about my perspective. I said yes. Because this story, our story, isn't just about one woman escaping one bad situation. It's about how we all face moments where we have to choose between convenience and conscience, between profit and principles, between easy and right. And it's about how those choices echo, how my choice to stand with Victoria gave her the courage to stand in front of everyone, how her courage gave Sarah the strength to speak up, how Sarah's story gave other women permission to come forward. One choice, one moment of integrity, rippling outward. That's the power of doing the right thing, not that it always works out perfectly, not that you always win, but that you become part of a larger story about people who refuse to compromise themselves. And that story matters. So here's my question for you, the one I ask myself regularly. What are you building with your choices? Are you building a life based on convenience, where you take the easy path and tell yourself it doesn't matter? Where you look away when it's uncomfortable to look? Where you accept things you know are wrong because challenging them would be hard? Or are you building a life based on integrity, where you choose right even when it costs you? Where you stand up even when you're scared? Where you use whatever power or platform you have to protect others? Would you take money to ruin someone's big day, even if no one would ever know? Have you ever done the right thing and still lost everything? I'd love to hear your stories, because I think we all face these moments. Maybe not as dramatic as being offered cash to sabotage a wedding, but moments where we have to choose who we want to be. And I believe that sharing these stories, being honest about the hard choices and what they cost us, helps all of us find courage when we need it. The bride thought $800 could buy my silence, could buy my willingness to betray my values, could buy my participation in someone else's manipulation. She was wrong, but she was also right about something else. She needed someone with courage, someone who would stand when it mattered, someone who valued truth over comfort. She found that person. Not because I'm special or brave or better than anyone else, but because when I was tested, I chose to be the person my dad raised me to be. The person who acts with integrity even when nobody's watching, especially when nobody's watching. In the end, the wedding wasn't ruined. It was revealed. And sometimes, revelation is the most powerful form of redemption. The truth was priceless. And my integrity, that was priceless too. What would you do if someone offered you money to betray your values? Have you ever chosen integrity over an easier path? Tell me your story in the comments below. And if you want more true stories about courage, conscience, and choosing what's right over what's easy, hit that subscribe button. Because we all need reminders that doing the right thing matters, even when it costs us everything. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you're braver than you think, and that your choices matter more than you know. Until next time, choose integrity, always.